welcome to another edition of Lessons from the Sidelines. And he really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one. And we're just going to call him the GOAT or the legend. He is the patriarch of the Harbaugh family, the father of John, Jim, Joni, the husband of Jackie, and the grandfather of so many. And to me, he is my father-in-law and just like a father to me. It is incredible to have an opportunity to talk to one of the greatest that I've ever seen walk the sidelines, and
Wow.
that's Coach Jack Harbaugh. So,
Thank
welcome,
you so
Coach,
much.
to the Harbaugh
Wow.
Coaching Academy. What it was all built for was to be able to take lessons that people have learned along the way and share them with others. And you were the inspiration of this for John and for Jim and for everybody because of all the lessons and wisdom that you have imparted over the years. And we're going to get right to it. So I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. But I think there's so many things that people can learn from you about coaching, about leadership, about your family, about having a family that's in sports like this. And I want to jump right in to when did you see in John that he had the capabilities or the desire and want to be a football coach?
And it was very, very early in life. John was the oldest. He's about 15 months older than Jim. He was the first grandson on either side. First on my side, first on Jackie's side. And he was revered. My mom and dad would come to visit, and his tail would never hit the ground. I mean, he was being passed around the room, and Jackie's parents came, and again being passed around. And he was so kind, and then competitive. I mean, very young, competitive. And then when Jim came along, the competition just took a new height. The two of them, and John was so good because he always included Jim when he was beginning to walk. He included Jim with his friends and playing with his friends and competing at that level, and it brought it out on John as well. But one story I can tell is it came along a little bit later. John was, I think, a junior at Pioneer High School, and he was a defensive back, and he was doing a fantastic job. They were playing one of the top teams in the state of Michigan at the time. We were in Ann Arbor. He was the right corner, if I remember, and they put a tough receiver on him, and the receiver would run an out route, and John was all over him. They would run a curl route. John was all over him, and Jim was up in the stands with me, and I think it might have been Jim that said something to me. He said, "Dad, he's jumping that out route. He's jumping that curl route. I'm afraid they're about ready to run an out and up on him." I said, "Well, get going, get going." So he's down the stands, he's sprinting, he goes right up to the railing. "John, the up and out, the up and out." Sure enough, the very next play was an up and out. John was all over him. So after the game was over, we're talking about it after the game, and Jim might have mentioned, "Boy, thank goodness that I called that out and up on you." And John said, "Hey, I was just setting him up. I was just setting him up. I was ready for that and had it covered." So if there's a story that could explain the two of them and how they worked with each other and took care of each other, that would be one of those great stories.
You know, Jim's competitiveness is legendary. I think everybody knows that. They see it. And a lot of people obviously remember the player in college, in the NFL. People see the coach. When did you first see that not that he wanted to coach, because they grew up in a coaching family, but when did you see in Jim that he had the ability, the temperament, the mindset that he could really be a successful coach?
It never really came to a point where you thought about that. And in the progression of starting out, when they tried out for a Pop Warner football team, the only thing you thought is, just please, dear God, let them belong. Let them, feel comfortable out there. Let them make the team. And then they went on to junior high school, and then they went on to high school, and the same thing. Just please give them the confidence and the playing ability to make the team, to be part of a team, and do some good things for the team. And then off to college with John to Miami, and then Jim off to college at the University of Michigan. It was always the same thing. It was never that you experienced anything greater than what they were attempting to accomplish at that particular time, and thankful that they were able to do it. And so when that question is asked, when did you see competitiveness? You really never recognize it as such. You just applauded and thanked the good Lord that they had the ability to compete. They were good teammates. They wanted to be the very best players that they could, and it just progressed to where we are today.
What's your mindset like, and what advice would you give to parents when they are watching their kids perform, either in sports or, in the case of you guys, watching two people coach at the highest level of football possible? What's it like for you preparing to do that?
It's an interesting thing because when I grew up in a little town of Crestline, Ohio, born in 1939, the war, and when I was young, I remember a little bit about that, Korean War and all that. My parents were so busy that they never got involved. My mom may have seen maybe one high school, and we were a block away from the stadium. We lived a block away from our high school stadium. My mom she would come maybe to a game. My dad, he would sit at home and listen. I mean, he could hear the crowd, but he didn't really come to the game. And he would come back and he said, "So, well, I hear you won," and no advice, no. But I knew he cared. I knew he loved, but they just didn't get involved. And now you look at we go to games and now and watch our grandkids. I mean, parents are there and they're sitting in chairs, and every pitch is, they can't catch their breath, and every good thing, I mean, they're celebrating. I mean, they're so involved. And from one extreme to the other extreme, somewhere in the middle, I think is where you should be. You should be supportive, but not so supportive that you put pressure on them that they think they have to achieve more than what they think you expect them to achieve. And I think it puts great pressure on them. I'm not sure that's so good. So if you can find that medium area where you're there, you watch the game, you don't necessarily get involved in the game. And here's a lesson that I've learned with grandson Jack. Things didn't go well. Things didn't go well. Get to the nearest McDonald's as you possibly can. Get there and order a 10 chicken fries or something, they're nuggets. Get that. Get a large French fries and a medium chocolate milkshake. It costs $11.11. Get that as quickly as you possibly can. And as soon as they get one French fries and they get one sip of that, and a smile on their face, and whether they could have gone 0 for 4, they could have did whatever they did, it didn't matter. The ride home was a better ride because you didn't make a fuss about the game. You got them to McDonald's. That was a key thing for me.
Those are good. 11.11. That must be the California prices on the McDonald's.
They're up now.
Let's go back to John. If you were telling somebody and you had a group of people and they were going to get a chance to watch John Harbaugh, and you wanted them to focus on a couple of things as they watch them coach, right? And what would be those things that you would say, if you really want to see coaching, watch this and watch that? What would it be?
First of all, before you get to watching him on television or you get to watch him in a game, watch him in meetings. We have an opportunity to sit in on our meetings during the week, and we have a chance to sit in their meetings the night before a football game, and how he relates to his team. I was a coach, and I sat in all those meetings with Bo Schembechler and meetings of my own and along the line. but he has such a grasp of what it's about to communicate with his players, and not only his players and his coaches, and he does it in a very personal way and in a professional way. He works hard in preparation to be ready for that particular meeting. He just doesn't come in and pound the table and give them a win one for the Gipper or any kind of a pep talk you think you can give them in 2 or 3 minutes that's going to make them ready to play. It's a process that started on the day after the last game, where you stand before your team and you give them a message for that week. What happens has to happen on that day in preparation for what's going to happen 6 days before. He presents that to them on Monday. Then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, practice, practice, practice. The practice schedules are all set to accomplish that goal that you set and you presented to them on Monday. And then on the night before the game, you have a meeting, you have a running game meeting, and then you have a special teams meeting, then you have an offensive and defensive meeting that's taking place at the same time. And you know where John is? John's in the room of all those meetings that he possibly can be in. Sometimes can't be in 2 rooms at the same time, so he'll switch them up from week to week. So he sits in there with the coach that's making the presentation for his particular side of the ball. Then he's taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
And the
With
players
a
have
notebook, with a regular notebook, right? With
in
a
a regular
regular
notebook.
$1.99 buy it at Staples type notebook to go with his game plan notes. Yeah.
And he's got a little rubber band around it, and where he's from page to page, and you're watching him. He does it, and he gets it. And then when he goes to present the team, the thing that I think is just magical almost is, when I coached, I would practice those. I wanted to be spot on with every word and how I phrased it. He gets up and then he uses the notes that he takes in the meeting of these other coaches and what their emphasis was on the game, and then he'll present it in his own words and in his own fashion, that same message. So from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you're building to this crescendo where the team is going to go to their rooms and prepare themselves for the next day. And it's a process of 1 week of bringing that, and not just one moment with one word or with one type of speech. And each week they're unique, and they're so spot on to the team that they're playing against. The energy that has to be exerted in order to make it all come possible. The point I'm trying to make is that he is very, 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 very intelligent. He's very, very bright. He's very sensitive to how the players feel and how the coaches feel, and wants to put them in the very, very best position to be relaxed and to go out and do all the things that they did during the week and accomplish victory.
Let me ask you this, going back to your coaching, because I got a chance to watch this completely. I'm gonna ask 2 questions. If you look back, especially with everything you did in turning that Western Kentucky program around, and all we can say there's Western Kentucky football because of what you did at Western Kentucky. God only knows where that program could be right now. There may not be one. It may have come back and been in Division III. Who knows? They were going to drop the sport. But not only did you save football, and not only did you build that program, you won a national championship. If you could pinpoint a couple key things that you look back, especially at your time at Western Kentucky, to say, these were the cornerstones of what we did, I think that's great advice for coaches to be able to look at, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that was 20 plus years ago, but so many of the things to me are still so relevant today. And a lot of things they're missing today. But I'd like to see, your answer, not my answer, on what you think those cornerstones were of your program.
Well, I think to tell that whole story, in 1986, I was at Western Michigan. I'd been there for 5 years, and we were just stumbling along and got called into the athletics director's office on a Monday morning at 9:30, and he told me, Jack, we're moving in a different direction. To which I said, which direction are we moving? To which he added that I'm moving in this direction and you're moving in this direction, which meant I didn't have a job. And I was stunned. I mean, totally stunned. Went home and told Jackie that we didn't have jobs anymore, and she rolled out of a list of about 20 things that needed to be done around the house, and so we were headed in that direction. And so I went the next 2 years. I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and it was I was an assistant head coach, and I was in a recovery mode. I mean, for 2 years it took me to just be able to gather myself to where I was standing upright and was ready for the next challenge. Western Kentucky called and went down for an interview. This is a great story. Went down for an interview. 1 week later, they called me and told me I was the new coach at Western Kentucky, and they were going to have a press conference. And went to the press conference. Went to a basketball game. They introduced me. I was all excited, and I'm back. And Jackie and I went out to a restaurant, Old Charlie's, I think it was, on the bypass there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we're sitting and there's a television set in the place where everybody's eating, and Gene Burke, he's still there. He's the sports director for the television station down there today, and he comes on at the 6 o'clock news and said, ladies and gentlemen, they've just hired a football coach here at Western Kentucky, and I'll be back in 60 seconds to tell you all about him. And they went to a commercial, and I'm sitting to Jackie, and I'm kind of filled with myself at the time, being a head coach again. And I said, Jackie, in any minute now, they're going to flash our picture up there that we're the new coaches. And these people are going to immediately recognize us, and, they're going to come over, and they want to congratulate us and welcome us to Bowling Green. So let's be ready. Come on, let's be ready. She gave me the fist up. I'm ready to go. So he came back and he said, ladies and gentlemen, they've just hired Jack Harbaugh from the University of Pittsburgh as the new Western Kentucky football coach. And the gentleman sitting in the next table said, they hired a damn Yankee. And I said to myself, my goodness, maybe we better not be recognized. Maybe we jump under the table here. So that was our welcome to Western Kentucky. So we were going along. In 1992, again, the president calls me to his office on a Friday afternoon. Spring practice was to start on Tuesday. Calls me into the office with the athletics director to tell me they were dropping football. They had a 5-4 vote. The Board of Regents, the Regents had decided that football would no longer be played at Western. They were going to announce it on Monday that the program was dropped, and it wasn't going to change. That's the way it was going to be. And I would suggest you go to your team today and tell them there will be no spring practice starting on Tuesday. The program is over. No sense in anyone getting hurt because they wouldn't be playing come a fall ball. So go back, talk to the players, and I said, here's the deal. Looks like we're not going to play, but it's a 5-4 vote. They're not voting until the end of April. And if we can flip that one vote over to a yes, and we'll be playing football. And it's up to you. If you don't want to play and you don't want to experience, possibly get injured and all that, we walk out of here and say we're not going to play. Or we go through spring practice, try to get that vote changed, and see if we'll be playing football in the fall. So every single hand went up. Coach, we're playing. We want to play. If there's a chance, we're going to play. We had the best spring practice. We used to get 2,000 people come to a practice. They had Save Football. I mean, it was a month of just total bringing everybody out in support of football. And April 30th, we went to the board meeting. And the 9 regents were up there, and they're going to go right. They started. Yay, nay, yay, nay, nay, yay, 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 yay. They're gone. I'm trying to keep count, and I'm not sure what the vote is, and they announce 5 votes for saving football and 4 votes for dropping football. You have football. Then they came with the bad news. You're going to lose 13 scholarships. we're going to take 2 coaches away from you. Now, 2 doesn't sound a lot unless to keep in mind we only had 6. So they were taking 2 of our 6 coaches, and we're cutting your operating budget in half. Good luck. So now it's already been a month earlier, they announced that we weren't going to have football. So about 6 teams, not that, maybe 3 or 4 teams said we went out and got other games, so we can't play you. And football was, I mean, I said, well, this is going to be a slow death now. So at that time, we're in recruiting. Jim comes through, and I'm in the office, and he's gone down to Florida for some time down in Florida when he was with the Chicago Bears. He's playing with the Bears at the time. Comes into the office, he said, what are you doing here? Why aren't you out on the road recruiting? I said, Jim, this program's, it's slow death. That doesn't sound like you. And I said, well, that's the way it is. He said, how can I help? I said, I can't see how you can help. He said, what if you lost 2 coaches, right? What if I sign up to be an assistant coach? I can't be here in the fall because I'm playing with the Bears, but I can be here in the wintertime and go down to Florida and help you recruit. I'm in Orlando, go over to back and forth and get you some players. And the first name was Willie Taggart, quarterback at Manatee High School outside of Bradenton. Had his telephone number in it. Jim picked it up, calls him. Willie answers the phone. Willie Taggart. Jim said, well, I'm Jim Harbaugh. And he said, I'm assistant coach here at Western Kentucky, and I'm coming to Florida next week. And what if I stop by your school and said hello to you? He said, well, that's fine. What Tuesday at noon, where will you be? So, well, I'm in the cafeteria. So Jim said, okay, I'll come in. So Willie, now Taggart, you got to understand, he's here with the Ravens. He's the running backs, assistant head coach, and so he thinks it's one of his student friends that are Jim Harbaugh. He said, you ever heard of Jim Harbaugh? He said, well, yeah, I've heard of Jim Harbaugh. He said, well, I'm Jim Harbaugh. I'm Jack Harbaugh's dad. He's the head coach, and I'll see you at noon on Tuesday. So Willie said, yeah, sure. He said, and tell Mike Ditka if he'd like to come along with you. We'd like to have him visit too. He said, but I don't think Mike's going to be available. So went down, visited with him. Willie comes to Western, becomes the quarterback. He rushed for 1,000 yards 4 years in a row.
What would you look back and say that were the cornerstones, like the biggest reasons why you were so successful at Western Kentucky? You overcame having the program being dropped, you recruited, you did things on a shoestring budget, but you won a national championship. And so when you look back at that, what summed up those teams? What made them so special?
When I took the job at Western Michigan, and I had worked for Bo Schembechler for 7 years, and I just idolized the guy. Every word he spoke became part of me. I started to talk like him. He was talking a type of a. I started to talk like him, and
that's where the dark sunglasses came from too. That's where the dark.
Yeah, that's the whole deal. I mean, everything was like Bo, and when I coached that way, and you know what? I forgot who I was, and for 5 years I coached the way I thought I needed to coach to be successful. And then, and it really didn't happen until after the football was dropped and we were starting to, that I said that the hell with it. I'm going to just see who I am. I'm going to coach the way the way I feel. And I feel like I'm not going to think of what would Bo say or how would Bo say that or what kind of a look would he give. I'm just going to do it in my way. And some of the things that came up, who's got it better than us? I mean, those things kind of generated and resonated in that, and I became a little bit of like who I was, and a transition took place. We had more success. We did more good things. Players liked me a lot better, I think, than when I was trying to be someone other than I was, and it all came to 10 years later, we win a national championship.
Well, I think those teams, that you had athleticism, you had toughness, you just overcame so many things. And I want to lead into this because I think this is so important for people to hear. when I look at basketball, there's so many things that are missing right now in younger basketball and with younger coaches. And a lot of it is, it's not just the fundamentals, it's the details of the fundamentals. I mean, and there's so many different things that basketball could be better at if people just understood the teaching aspects of the fundamentals, the teaching aspect of the details, the teaching aspect of giving real confidence. And when you look at football and you look at coaching of football now, and this is not a Jim and John question because they are at the top of their profession, but what's football missing? What's football coaching missing right now that could make it so much better if people could really absorb the message that they've got to get across to their teams?
That's a great question, Tom. And I've kind of honed in on that just over the last few years. We had a guy on our staff at Michigan by the name of Gary Moeller. Gary Moeller was the defensive coordinator when I was there, and then he went on to be the head coach at Illinois and later on the head coach at the University of Michigan. And he had this thing as, how do you see that? And he was our coordinator. I was a secondary coach. And we would have a problem in a practice, or we'd have problems in a game, and he wanted to address it with me. But so many times as a coach, you address it by you inflicting how you see it, and you sometimes you go off, sometimes you misjudge, and that stuck with me. And when I started coaching at Western, I started to use it so much more. If I had a problem with a coach and I wanted to sit down and talk to him, I would say to him, first of all, first thing would be, how do you see that? And that question is so powerful, because when you ask how you see it, they explain to you how they saw it, and how they saw it will give you an idea of how we got to this place, and you would have a way to address it in a sane way that it's not offensive. It's very much taking him into your trust to where he's going to explain it to you. And the conflicts that I had at Western, I inflicted by the way I addressed trying to find out something that was going to make us so much better. Mm-hmm. So that one thing, just asking them how they see it. I mean, a guy could just fumble. He fumbles the ball. What do you go on? You could go off on him, and he's looking at you like, how did you see that? And he could explain something to you that makes sense. If it doesn't, then you can go in a different direction. But find out what was going through his mind when that decision was made or that play was made.
Makes a lot of sense. Last couple of questions here that I think will be so good for people to hear. And you've always included your family, and now your family includes you. You're sitting in John's office. You'll be at LA. You've been everywhere we've been. But you and Jackie always included John, Jim, and Joni in your job, whether it was bowl trips. Joni still talks about those trips, whether it was recruiting trips, whether it was practices, whether it was coming home for dinner. What advice would you give to coaches that worry in this day and age, well, I've got to put this amount of time in, or I've got to be here, I've got to be there? What advice would you give people to make sure that they never lose sight of how important it is that they include their family in their work?
There's two answers to that question. And number one was when I was in 1957, I was offered a scholarship to Bowling Green State University. No one in my family had ever gone to college. Very few people in our small town of Crestline had ever gone to college. One guy that lived about a half a block from us, Sonny Woods, went to Heidelberg on a football scholarship and was a doctor. And I say him because he's the only one. Here I am at Bowling Green State University. When my mom and dad dropped me off at school, they could have been dropping me in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and I would felt just as comfortable because I'd never been out that far away from home and in that situation where I was all by myself. And Dwight Perry was my coach. There's few people that had such an influence on me, and Dwight Perry was maybe, as far as the coach is concerned, was the greatest influence on my life. He was an interesting guy because he didn't look like a football coach. He looked like a college professor. He had glasses, and he never said what he wanted to say. He never said goodbye when a telephone conversation was over. It was just click. He was done talking, so that was it. If you'd go into his office to talk to him, he would never look you in the eye. He would always look out a window across to where the tennis court was. You'd be answering his questions by looking at the back of his head. He was such a different guy. He had a football class. It was a 3-hour class. The first class I ever attended at Bowling Green was an 8 o'clock class. Dwight Perry was the teacher. There were about 35 people in the class. All the freshman football players were in the class. Some students were in the class. Some other athletes were in the class, and he was teaching the class. And he went like this, fellas, take out a piece of paper and a pencil, because I'm going to give you the first question of the final examination. Write this down, and you are guaranteed to get the first question of the final examination. And I took mine out, and I got my pencil ready to go, and a couple guys didn't get their pencils. Hey, over there, get that pencil and paper out and write this down. There's 3 things. We're going to start with number 3. Number 3, to be a successful coach, to be successful in anything you do in life, you have to have a love and passion for the game you're going to coach. You just don't do it to be having fun or game days or being carried off the field when you win a game. You got to have a love and passion for the game. Ooh, I wrote number 3, love and passion for the game of football. Boom. Number 2, you've got to outwork your competition. Not only your competition playing a team that comes into our stadium where we're going, the competition you're going to have to fight for here to win a position. You're going to have to beat out somebody in this room. You've got to compete. You've got to outwork them. Outwork them. Boom. Number 1, I swear to God, Tom, it was like a drum roll. Boom. 1, marry wisely. I've seen that so often now. 63 years later, it's the greatest advice that I ever got. It was the first piece of advice that I ever got. I wished I still had the paper that I wrote it on. Now, I want to say this, though. I need to say this, and I'm a little embarrassed to say it is. I didn't do real well on the final examination.
Well, you got those 3 right. You got those 3 right.
That's it, right. I got those right.
What advice would you give coaches that you have given to Jim and to John, and to me, but especially to Jim and to John, as you go through this path, right, where you're in leadership and you're a coach and you're running a team, and you're such a subject for people to be critical of you, and it may be right, it may be wrong, but it's going to come. What's the best advice you give to them that people that are watching this could take with them?
Unsubscribe to any kind of outside distraction that you have. Social media, don't pay any attention to it. And I don't pay any attention to it. The only thing that you pay attention to is your family, and your family being your football family and your family at home. Pay attention to them. Lean on them. Count on them. Don't get involved in that stuff. If you do, it just totally tears you apart. We didn't have those things in my coaching career. We didn't have that. You might get a bad article in the newspaper, or someone might question something you do in the newspaper, but it wasn't as hateful now, and it wasn't so many weren't involved about. There's people that are right on social media and tell you how to coach or tell you what you should have done that wouldn't know a football or a jock strap from the back of their hand. I mean, they have no idea of what this game is all about and what goes into it. And you've got to focus on that and look at it that way. Your team. You want an answer to a question, you ask a coach. You want an answer to something, you ask And if your wife gives you something, certainly listen to her. But whatever information you can get like that, you focus on that, and don't get involved in those kinds of things.
What advice would you give to them, okay, about helping their players with that? So let's say that that's easier for the coach to be able to handle. But let's say now it's one of their players that's struggling with that criticism, or it's one of your grandchildren that are struggling with that criticism, and it's a lot harder to turn off that world because it's so prevalent. What advice would you give them?
The same advice that maybe I wouldn't be as graphic with it, or I wouldn't be as loud with it, but I would tell it like it is. The thing I found is confrontational problem solving. Now, that's one of the things I believe, confrontational problem solving, whether it's your family or whether it's your football team. If the problem comes up, something comes up, you confront it immediately. You don't sleep on it. Somebody, I need to sleep on it. Need to sleep on it. You're wasting time. You got a problem with someone or something, or you have to, you call them on the phone and you address it. If you have a problem with a player, maybe not going to class, you don't wait till the class is over. I mean, you find him before the class is over and try to get him back in that class. That's what I'm talking about, confrontational, problem solving on a way like that. With your children, grandchildren, people that you deal with, tell them how you think. Now, they may not be happy. They may not be liked. It may not be easy for you to do, but you get it addressed. If you got a problem with two people, one person is having a problem with another person, when you're the head coach, you bring both of them into your office, you sit across the table from them, and you talk about, tell him what bothers you about what he said. Tell him about how you're going to respond to what he just said to you. Back and forth until that game wears out. Now, here we are, and this is the way that we're going to address it. Confrontationally, you don't put it aside, you don't sleep on it, you don't wait on it, because it just grows and grows and grows until it could be a problem that brings your team down.
Now, this has been good, and I think people will learn. There's so much to learn. There's been so many different things, but bottom line is, no matter how much you love something, you got to include your family in it. You got to tell people the truth, and you've got to help them be the very best that they can be, and you got to do it in a partnership, and as you guys have done. So it's been phenomenal. This has been lessons from the sidelines, and there's a lot of lessons in here that have been very good. So, Coach Jack Harbaugh, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.